It's the Ask Dr. Renee show here at blackdoctor.org. Thank you for tuning in. Please, everyone, share the broadcast wherever you're watching, LinkedIn, YouTube, blackdoctor.org's Facebook page or my Facebook page. Please make sure you share the broadcast. This is a very important topic, especially in our community. And unfortunately, it's something that most people don't talk about, but they are experiencing or have experienced. So this is National Infertility Awareness Week. And so this is our first day of celebrating that. Last year, we had a whole week's worth of shows. I might replay some of those this week so you can see them. But please make sure you tune in because you don't know who, male or female, who are experiencing this. So please, please, please make sure you share the broadcast. Thank you, Dr. Lauren Powell, for joining us. Last year, she was busy and couldn't join us, so I am so excited she can join us because her story is a great one that has a great happy ending.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And you're right. Like, we definitely don't talk about this. We don't talk about having challenges and, desiring pregnancy and it not coming easy to you. I think we see more of the people getting pregnant all the time and, the people that are struggling, don't really have the space to talk about it. So thankful that you're doing that. And so my story basically started, my husband and I delayed having children. I was, residency and then kind of just enjoying being a newlywed and having a job and things like that. So, didn't think that when we desired to get pregnant that we would have a problem. But after about 7 months of not getting pregnant on our own, I just kind of knew like we probably were going to need some help. So we started with, my OBGYN, did a basic workup. That was pretty normal. Had my husband do a workup with the urologist because, we know that it takes two people to make a baby. And so kind of did that as well. We started with 2 IUIs, which is kind of like a less invasive, help with, fertility kind of assistance. We did 2 of those and it didn't work. And so at that point I was kind of like, what to do. IVF is a big undertaking financially. And, my insurance didn't have any fertility benefits. So kind of trying to figure out, is that the route we're going to go? And neither of us knew anyone who had did IVF. My husband is like, we have to pay how much to do what? And there's no guarantee, so trying to kind of get him on the same page and kind of bought into the whole process was a lot. And that was like a big undertaking. So we ended up getting a second opinion, and that's where I met actually Dr. McCarthy Keith, Dr. Desiree McCarthy Keith, who was amazing. I'm so thankful that I was able to get on her schedule. And actually, when I called, it was like a 6-month wait to even get in to like have a consult with her. And then while we were on the phone, she had a cancellation. Like somebody just like canceled while we were on the phone. And they were like, you want to come Friday? And I was like, okay. So my husband and I met Dr. MK, had a virtual visit and, sent her all my records that I had, things that I had done. And she was pretty confident she could get us pregnant. And so that's kind of where we started.
Wow. So IUI is intrauterine insemination. So IVF is in vitro fertilization. So that's the difference. And then, so in vitro obviously means that you actually do all of the creating of the embryo outside of the body, whereas IUI, they bring the sperm to go into the body.
Yeah.
So the 2 IUIs, just out of curiosity, how much was that? That's not as bad, I've heard.
No, it's not as bad. Like, maybe the actual procedure was $500. I mean, you have to do a bunch of blood work and the ultrasounds. Right. And we ended up having to like bank my husband's sperm because his count was kind of low. And so what happens is you lose like 50% of the sperm at the vagina, like during natural intercourse. And so we banked his sperm. But what happens is, you can bank sperm, but when you you get the sperm, you freeze it, get sperm, freeze it. And then when it's time, you unthaw everything, but you lose 50% of the sperm when you unthaw it. So I don't remember how much we spent in total with IUIs, but the actual procedure is $500. I'd probably say we probably spent a few thousand after you do ultrasounds and the monitoring and the visits. And again, everything was out of pocket because, it's considered a fertility treatment and my insurance didn't have any fertility benefits. So that was all out of pocket.
Now, did you the IUI, did you have to take medications too for that?
Yeah, I took some medications, but it was more so just really timing things with my natural cycle. Like that's the whole thing. And obviously not everybody is a candidate for IUI. It's basically if the sperm count is low, that as one of the reasons, for having infertility issues, it can be really beneficial because obviously you're kind of timing things just right and you're getting, that catheter is going literally right in the uterus. You don't have to worry about losing sperm in the vagina. And so it helps with that stuff. But yeah, it was not successful for us. And they say on average it takes 3 to be successful. So after I had done 2, the doctor I was seeing at that time was kind of like, you can do another one. But at that point, I just felt like we were spending so much time and money, and then for it to potentially not be successful again. And then I thought, like, if we want to have more than one kid, that like we're gonna have to do this every single time versus going the IVF route, which would just increase our chances of being successful, and then potentially having embryos to bank to use for future pregnancies. That's why I was like, I took a break because it was during the holiday. I was like, let me just take a break and think about it, talk to some of my OBGYN friends and got their opinions. And that's when I had a consult with Dr. MK.
Awesome. And also Dr. MK is a Black woman, right?
Yeah, she is. She's
So,
the medical director of Shady Girl Fertility in Atlanta.
okay. So unfortunately, it is a small sorority of women that are Black women fertility specialists. And so there is not going to be one in every state.
No, unfortunately.
But I will say, and you might even attest to this as well, you don't have to be in the same state as the fertility doctor.
No, I mean, I have a lot of patients that travel to New York because I've heard costs are different in New York, but people travel all over. I've seen patients go to Florida where there's just other things available. So you definitely don't have to be in the same state. People can do labs and monitoring in a different state, and then actually go somewhere else for your procedure. So you definitely don't have to be.
Yeah. So don't feel like that is a barrier, because as we always say on Black Doctor, there actually was a recent study done, and of course they didn't send me the information yet, but I'm gonna get the article that you will get better care if you do have a Black doctor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really want to. And when it comes to this, you really do, only because a lot of those other clinics and those other doctors, it's a kind of like an assembly line thing, and they give you the
Yeah.
exact same care that they gave the last one that walked in. And we're not all the same. And I'm not saying just Black people, but people are not all the same. So
Yeah.
for you to do that, and this is not cheap, as she said. So
No.
for it to be as costly as it is, and you paid all that money over there, and then you go see a Black doctor and they get you pregnant right away, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
It tells you that you might have been wasting your money. And so that's what I'm saying. You really need to really think hard about it and do a lot of research. There's a lot of good questions you need to ask when it comes to this, so that you can understand if this clinic is actually successful in making babies.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the goal. And if they're not, then, and once we get into talking about embryos and stuff, this whole thawing thing and stuff, not everyone is good at that.
Yeah. It is a whole thing. And it's not just like the doctor, but it's like the whole thing, the pathologist,
The embryologist,
yeah.
So it's really about the team. And then because this is so, and she'll talk about it, it's really is a whole lot, and you really need somebody and it doesn't have to be the doctor, but somebody on the staff that is like explaining all this to you and walking you through, because especially we're medical. Okay. And so, and actually when I did my fertility stuff, I gave my own shots, but a lot of people can't do that. And so you need to be able to work with someone who's going to help you explain the stuff to you and, walk you through it. And you have to do it in a certain way. And, it's a lot. So after you decided, okay, we're going to try IVF, what was next?
So I was also at this point in my job where I was thinking about leaving. I was wanting to leave. And so I was going to leave and do locums was my plan. So even though my job was not paying for, like, I didn't have any fertility benefits, I didn't want to be starting something new, kind of like undergoing this fertility treatment where I was going to be back and forth and back and forth. So I basically was to my doctor, like, I'm about to give my notice at work, and I'm going to have like 90 days to try to do this, because I don't want to start a new job trying to travel and do this. So she was like, okay, we'll get you pregnant in 90 days. So
I love it.
we just went to work, and, going through the whole process, like explaining to my husband, getting the finances. You basically start nothing until they get their money. And so, paid for that. And then the medications is like a separate thing. So then paying for the medications, which was probably like between $1,500 and $2,000. So getting that, and then just going like for monitoring. So it's basically, I think of IVF in like kind of two phases. One is like making eggs. So like doing, getting your hormone, doing all the hormones and all the injections to like make eggs, and then retrieving those eggs, fertilizing them with the sperm, seeing which ones fertilize, seeing which ones grow and are healthy. So we did genetic testing on our embryos to make sure that they were healthy, to help increase our successes of them sticking. And then the second part is then implanting that embryo, giving it, that 2-week waiting window, and then seeing if it sticks.
So I forgot, you said your husband had low sperm count. Did you guys know that ahead of time?
No, we knew it like once we were doing like the workup. That's what we
Okay.
discovered. So
Okay.
that in combination, like my egg count was like normal, but like on the very low end of normal. So I think just like the combination of the things is probably why we were having a hard time.
And keep in mind, Dr. Lauren did not start this process over 40. So that
I
is
was 35 at the time.
See, so that's a word to the wise. Ladies, if you even think you may possibly want to consider it, please go to your OBGYN and ask for a fertility workup, just so they can check your numbers, because you don't want to get to, finally get married, or finally say, okay, we're ready to start a family, and then run into problems.
Yeah.
And then by then, because we are only born with so many eggs, and that's all the eggs you get. So you want to make sure that you figure out what's going on well in advance. And to our lovely little sisters that are just graduating college, please consider, before you buy that wonderful car or buy that beautiful house, saving your eggs. Yeah, preserve your fertility, because then at least you have them on the they're waiting, and you can go on about climb the corporate ladder, whatever it is you're trying to do, and then at least you have that insurance policy, you got that there just in case you need them, because you may not, but just in case you do, they're there. So so you, in 90 days, you started shooting and all of that fun stuff. Now, did you have any issues with the hormones?
Not too much. I mean, my husband used to help me with some of the injections. So like the progesterone, for instance, you have to do it in your butt. And so he used to help me with that. But the problem was I started my locums gig, and you have to continue the progesterone for 10 weeks. And so when I would go away, I would have to inject myself. And so at one point it was just kind of hard for me. I couldn't like see over my boobs. So I had read that you could inject your thigh. So I injected my thigh, not knowing the severe debilitating muscle pain that it causes, which is why people don't inject their thigh. So I mean, like, hard time walking. And I ended up going to the doctor, and they were like, do not inject your thigh. Like you will, I was in so much pain. I could not lift my leg. Like I couldn't lift my legs to do a pelvic exam. So that was like the one hard time. But it's rough. And then like, everything is timed. Like stuff has to be given at certain times. I had like reminders all on my phone. I remember traveling and having to stop at an airport bathroom and inject myself, because during IVF, it's like an emotional thing, right? You don't know if it's going to work. You feel like you have no control. And the only thing you can control is like giving yourself the medicine. I feel like that's like the only thing I could control. So if anything, I'm going to give myself the medicine at the time I'm supposed to get it. I'm not going to miss a dose. I'm going to be on top of it. So I was like super crazy when it came to like my medications, like traveling with them, lunchbox, like, no, I can, like not going, because the control freak in me, it's like you want to control something, and it's like the only thing you can. And so I just was trying to do that to the best of my ability.
I understand. I completely understand. I I didn't have any problems with the hormones. Like I've heard people, they've had the extremes of crying and then they've had extremes of happiness. And I'm just like, God, help me, please. But I didn't have any issues. And I worked out all the way through too.
That's
Now,
good.
towards the end, I will not forget, I was like, I do feel like something is in my body. And I'm like, what? She's like, oh, that's just the follicles growing. And I'm like,
Yeah, they
oh
get
my God, I
huge.
kind of can feel that. But she's like, I mean, as long as you're okay, you can work out. And I was on the Peloton and
That's good.
I was with the trainer. I was like, what we're not going to do is reverse all this weight loss.
That's true. I feel that.
Yeah, so I just kept it going. And actually, I talked to my mentor, my OBGYN, and she said, because I had become so healthy, she goes, that's why the hormones didn't bother you. Like, it didn't. I was like, because when I say didn't phase me, I had people hot flashes. I have nothing.
That's good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it can be very daunting, especially for somebody who's not medical. It's a lot of medicine. And like she said, different times. It was wonderful. The clinic, they gave me a wonderful calendar. And so I knew what time, what date, and everything. And call us on this day. And my clinic is in Vegas. So Dr. Cindy Duke, lovely Mocha. And I did everything in Michigan. Had a lovely clinic that was close by, and they did all the monitoring.
Wonderful.
And
That's
with
perfect.
the time difference, it was wonderful. I'd go in the morning to the clinic, and then by the time they came to work, they had the results. And then
that was good. That worked out really good.
Yeah, they would call and say, okay, so everything looks good. Da 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 da. Okay, tomorrow. Okay, and it was great. So yeah, you can do it. Like I said, you can do it remotely. It's not the worst thing ever. I of course flew on a plane to Vegas for my retrievals, but and then even that, I did that. I went in and out. Like I flew in the same day and left the same day. And one thing with them is they had all of the medicine sent to where I was like, I just was sitting at my friend's house waiting to leave. They had all the medicine sent there. I had everything when I got on the plane. I started taking the meds right when they told me to. I followed it to the letter and I was good.
That's
Didn't
good.
have any pain. Yeah, I was fine. So yeah. So when you, how many embryos did you guys get?
We ended up getting 7 embryos. 4 were not normal. So we had 3 healthy embryos. And so my fertility doctor will only implant 1. She is of the thought that IVF is already kind of like a high risk procedure, and she just doesn't want to do anything that could potentially make you more high risk, like having multiple. So her philosophy is she will only implant 1. So she implanted 1 embryo.
Yeah, and that's most REIs personally. I've seen across the board, most of them will do 1. Yeah. And the people who end up with multiple births, usually it's because it just naturally does split.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because actually we had someone on recently, and that's what happened. She ended up with twins. She was going back for 1 more.
Oh, wow.
she actually adopted 1 and was going to have a baby and ended up with 2. So now she has 2.
That's wild.
So, it happens. So, so at your end of your 3 months, you got all this accomplished. So then how long did you wait before you decided, okay, I'm going to get pregnant? Or you did it right then?
We did it right away. So got the embryos, found out which ones were healthy, and then go ahead and, prepared the uterus for implantation. That probably took another 3 weeks just to kind of get my uterus ready. And then implanted, and then, you have to wait 2 weeks before you basically find out if it's stuck. So then we, went and did a blood test, found out that it stuck. And then you just kind of continue the progesterone. And I think that was the only medication I had to continue for 10 weeks. And then once, the pregnancy was confirmed via ultrasound, then they released me and I was able to follow with my OBGYN for the rest of the pregnancy.
And did you have a pretty good normal pregnancy?
Yeah, I mean, I had no problems. Like I was very thankful. I feel like God made me, have all the hard work to get pregnant. So the pregnancy was, I was extremely blessed. Issues with delivery in just that they didn't want me going past a certain amount of time just because I was considered high risk because of age and because I did the IVF. So they induced me, and I was induced for like two or I don't even remember, 3 days maybe. So by the time it came, I was 40 weeks, but ended up with a C-section, which is fine, healthy baby, healthy mom. And so I was fine with that, in a nice controlled situation. And that was
No
it.
emergencies.
No emergencies. It was just like they tried to induce me, and they're like, your cervix is not dilating like at all. It's so hard. It's so posterior. They're like, let's just try another day of induction. And I mean, they had pit. I was on max dose pit for like a day and never dilated. Slept through it. Didn't even feel it. And they're like, you must have some receptor. Like you must not have the receptors. Like, because the OB was like, I've never seen anything like it. Like literally no change. So I was like, I don't even know what to say about that. But so we just had a C-section, and I was fine with that.
So how old is your little boy?
He turned 15 months today.
Oh, wow. Wow.
My baby.
So so the other thing about this, of course, is the mental part of it. And so how many people did you share with that you were going through this?
Not a lot. Like my close circle knew. My parents knew. They didn't fully kind of know what, because they're just from a different kind of generation. So they just didn't really understand, like, what do you mean you're healthy? You and your husband are young. Like, what do you mean you need help to get pregnant? And so they kind of knew, but kind of didn't really kind of all the way understand what I was doing. But mostly a lot of like my medical friends, because I was asking them questions and just from their medical perspective. And so I probably had a group of like 5 to 7 people that knew.
Yeah. So I was telling her before the broadcast, we were at a party where we first met, and she said she wasn't drinking because she was preparing to get pregnant. Now, that was May of 2019. We're both online. I see her online all the time. You came to Chicago. Remember you did you were at the doctor's house.
Oh, yeah.
Demo? So she came to Chicago, and I was like, but let me tell you, word to the wise, and she knows I never said anything. I remembered that and mentioned it today, but I never asked her, well, when are you getting pregnant? Where's the baby? Never, because you just don't do that.
Yeah.
If anyone's going through it and they share with you, you're going through it, wait for them to tell you.
Yeah. I think that's something my husband learned. My husband was like, never again am I going to ask a woman about having kids. Like, because you just don't know. He's like, I'm never going to ask a woman again if she wants to have kids, or if she's going to have kids, or when she's going to have kids.
Yeah, you just don't say anything, and I told her I was praying for her because I knew something must have happened, because I remember her saying that. And I was like, she doesn't have a baby, she doesn't have a baby. And then when she talked about it, I was like, see, I knew. And when you announced you were pregnant, I was like, oh, we were so happy. And
I prepared for a long time. I mean, I really I didn't think I was going to have any trouble getting pregnant. I mean, I had regular cycles, healthy person. So I really prepared a year or so before even getting my birth control out, in terms of just optimizing my health and my weight, and just making sure I was just really good with everything. And so stopped drinking caffeinated beverages, stopped drinking coffee, all the things. So it's funny, you can do all the preparing in the world, and
you just never know.
You just don't know.
So, but yeah, you have to really, just be kind to people. And just because people get married doesn't mean that they want to have children, one, but two, that they got to have them right away and stuff. So just try not to ask that stuff. And we know grandma and auntie might, but try and curb them to, be the one in the house that's like, hey, don't ask them, leave them alone,
And I feel like I was talking to my friend, it's a lot of pressure. As soon as you get married, I feel like people are like, when are you going to have a kid? And then after you have one kid, there's so much pressure, and people really don't know what people are going through after they have their first kid. You don't know if they're mentally in a good place where they're ready to have, because it's a lot of mental strain and things having a child. And so I just think in general we just have to be more mindful about putting pressure on people like that. And it could be so unintentional, right? You have no idea that what that person is going through and how what you're saying could be triggering to them. But I just think we have to do better of just being mindful of that. Even when I talk to my patients about kids, I say, what do you think about children? That's all I ask. I said, what do you think about it? Someone will say, oh gosh, I never want to have kids. And I say, okay. Or they'll say, yeah, I think I want to have kids one day. And I say, okay. I just want you to think about it, and no timeline or anything like that. But if you think you want to may have children, let's think about having conversation about your fertility. And, if you think you have some things that you want to accomplish before starting a family, let's consider freezing your eggs. That way you don't even have to have the pressure and think about it. But I think we need to just make sure we're asking questions in a way that are very non-pressure and non-stressful for
Yeah.
folks.
And I'm glad that you, as a practitioner, do that, because when I tell you there are so many doctors that are just passing it off and not saying anything. I've had several ladies less than 35 say to me, I've heard of, should I do that? And I was like, yeah. And then they go talk to their doctor. Oh, you have nothing to worry about. You don't need to do that. And I'm like, oh my God, don't say that, And I had a friend who was getting married, and she was like, should I, be concerned? And their doctor, oh no, you've got time. You're fine. Sure enough, they got married and they were having trouble. And this was at the height of at the beginning of the pandemic. They were just about to have their fertility appointment. Then the world shut down. And so, she was like, I read this book, Renee, and all of a sudden the girl pops up pregnant as a baby. And I was like, she goes, so, ended up, we didn't need the fertility doctor. I said, praise the Lord. But her doctor was somebody that told her too. And, and I've told this story before. My friend, Christia Donaldson, the creator of TGIM products, she wrote in her last book that she went to a junior league event, which junior league is obviously not a Black organization, and they had a presentation about fertility, and she went back to her doctor and said, okay, I'm going to freeze my eggs. And her doctor, oh, you have nothing to worry about. You don't need to freeze your eggs. She froze her eggs and got diagnosed with breast cancer the next year. So that is just to tell you, hello, like you need to really, think about it, and just know this. It's cheaper to freeze them the younger you are, because the less meds you will probably need.
Yeah.
The less rounds you will probably need, because you will get so many eggs. So it's just better. Also, there are now, I think, maybe 20 states across the country that do require insurance to cover fertility. You would have to look into it and see which states those are. The other clue is that even if you don't live in that state, if you work for a company that is headquartered in that state, then you would qualify. So Illinois does have fertility coverage, but if you work for a company that's based in Illinois and you're in another state, you would get the coverage. So be mindful of that. And then also all these fabulous entrepreneurs out here. Hello, shop your insurance. That's what I did. I was calling and on the phone for a long time, but I was like, we're going to figure this out and figure out the most cheapest way for me to do this. And we made sure I had the exact correct insurance that had a low deductible so that I can meet it quickly, and you would cover it 100.
Okay.
Other than that, they cover 80-20. So you have to, do the research. Also, if you do work for a corporation, you need to go knock on HR's door and have a conversation and say, look, this is what me and my husband are trying to plan for the next year. It's open enrollment. Is there a way that we can make a change that I could, make sure that I'm covered in some way, shape, or form? So, people don't realize you have these options. You do have these options. So you need to go ask the questions. And then the other part of this is there's so many grants out there and so many discounts, and you don't have to be poor and broke to get discounts. Doctors like us get discounts. Lawyers get discounts. And any help you can get, especially on the medication, you would want to have. So, because unfortunately, the way that it usually works is the medication is not covered under your medication insurance anyway.
Nope.
Even though it's covered in my insurance, it's not covered under that. So you need to ask all the questions and figure it out. But there is a way to do it. And honestly, 2023, it's a lot cheaper now than it was back, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So please, and a lot of, young people are like, oh my God, I can't afford to do that. But you never know. You might be able to afford to. You need to just look into it. Our lovely friends that work for Amazon covers it. Starbucks covers it. So there's Google covers. So there's all sorts of ways. You can work part-time and get it covered, FYI. So there's ways to get it done. So Dr. Lauren is the culinary doctor. She is going to make sure food is medicine, even though she
Yes.
is a physician. She will make sure that you eat so that you don't have to take a whole lot of meds. So please tell us what you have coming up with that.
So I have a nutrition and wellness program. It's a virtual program. Basically, it's where you go to learn how to be well. We all know where to go and what to do when we're sick and we don't feel good, but where we're supposed to go to learn how to be well, to eat well, to prevent disease, to manage disease. It's my nutrition and wellness program. I've been doing this now for like 4 years. We're about 73 members strong. So it's a place I have guest experts come every week, talk about stuff, acupuncture, mental health, hormones, all the things. And then I do once a month, sometimes twice a month, I'll do a virtual cooking class where we kind of take some of the principles we've learned for the week, for the month, put them in a recipe, and we cook together. You get the recipe in advance, you get the grocery list, and we cook live together. There's a lot of barriers when it comes to health. We just talked about this fertility stuff and how it can be expensive. I wanted to create something that was like a non-barrier. So this program is $22 a month. It's like so inexpensive. You'll find nothing like it on the internet where you can talk to medical experts. So it's nutritionwithdrlauren.com. If you want to learn more about that, I would love to have you and see you in the kitchen. I'm on a new show called Urban MD that's going to be coming on BET Plus. You might have seen some of the segments during the holidays where I did a segment for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to be there as a culinary doctor, just talking about food and giving some quick health tips. So you'll want to check out for that. You should be seeing that very, very soon.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. Here's her website. Here's the nutritionwithdrlauren.com. Of course, you can follow her at Dr. Lauren on Instagram. She has, and she also has a YouTube channel, Dr. Lauren. So please check out her YouTube channel as well. And she did do videos about her fertility journey. She even showed like how much it costs. Like she showed the bill and the receipt. She showed how much the different services were. It was very, very well done. I watched that series. I loved it.
Oh, great.
And she cooks very well. When I tell you, like I said, in person, I've had her cooking. And that's why we use Bonza now in my family. Because
wonderful.
Bonza should pay us both, but yeah, that's why we use it now. Bonza is a chickpea pasta that is great for people who have, even if you don't have diabetes, but it's great because it's not all those carbs and chickpeas. That's protein
and fiber.
Yeah, so it's great and it tastes good. It's not like, now I'm allergic to wheat, so I've never had whole wheat pasta, but I've been told it doesn't taste like whole wheat pasta. It tastes more like regular pasta. And that's what I think. It tastes like regular pasta to me. So
yeah. Agree.
But yeah, she cooks fabulously and quickly. She's got a family now. So, and she's also, she got to get it done. And she has a picky eater in her house too. We won't talk about it. So, but she somehow sneaks in the veggies for that person too. And, but yeah, please check her out, follow her. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.